What if I told you that beneath the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, hidden under miles of water and sediment, lies the most legendary lost civilization in human history? What if Atlantis, the advanced island nation, described by Plato over 2,000 years ago, wasn't in the Atlantic Ocean as everyone believed, but has been waiting in the Pacific all along, preserved in perfect silence beneath the crushing depths? Tonight, as the world grows quiet and your mind prepares for rest, we're going to embark on the most extraordinary archaeological journey ever undertaken. We'll dive deeper than any human has gone before, past the sunlight zone, past the twilight depths, down to the abyssal plains of the Pacific, where sonar readings have detected geometric patterns, too precise to be natural, too ancient to be from any known civilization. Close your eyes and prepare to witness the discovery that will rewrite human history. The moment when lost Atlantis reveals its secrets after 11,000 years of silence beneath the Pacific waves. Before we descend into the mysterious depths, where legends become reality, if you find yourself drawn to these ancient mysteries and sleep stories that explore the hidden corners of our world, consider joining our community of fellow explorers. Subscribe and ring that notification bell to journey with us as we uncover the secrets that have been waiting in the darkness for millennia. Now, let's begin our descent into the Pacific depths, where the greatest archaeological discovery in human history is about to unfold. It began with a sound, a sonar ping echoing back from the depths of the Pacific Ocean with a pattern that defied explanation. Dr. Ilana Vasquez, a marine archaeologist aboard the research vessel Cousteau's Dream, was conducting a routine mapping expedition of the Mariana Plateau when the ocean floor scanner detected something impossible. The date was March 15, 2024. The coordinates 15 Grady N 145 Grady, approximately 800 miles northeast of the Mariana Trench. At a depth of 12,000 feet below the surface, where eternal darkness reigns and the pressure would crush a human body in milliseconds, the sonar revealed geometric patterns that could only mean one thing: intelligent design. These aren't natural formations. Dr. Vasquez whispered to her team, her voice barely audible over the hum of the research vessel's engines. The sonar images on her screen showed perfectly straight lines extending for miles, circular patterns with mathematical precision, and what appeared to be massive structures arranged in a grid pattern across the ocean floor. The team worked through the night, mapping an area roughly the size of Rhode Island. What they found defied everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations. The structures weren't just randomly scattered. They formed a coherent city plan, with what appeared to be a central complex surrounded by concentric rings of smaller buildings. As dawn broke over the Pacific, Dr. Vasquez made the call that would change history forever. "We need to go down there," she announced to her team. "We need to see this with our own eyes." The preparation took weeks. Deep sea exploration at 12,000 feet requires technology that pushes the limits of human engineering. The submersible Orpheus, one of only 3 vessels in the world capable of reaching such depths, was specially equipped with high-definition cameras, robotic sampling arms, and the most advanced lighting systems ever created for deep sea exploration. On April 20, 2024, Dr. Vasquez and marine engineer Dr. James Chen began their descent into the Pacific abyss. The journey down took over 2 hours, passing through layers of ocean that represent different worlds entirely. First, the sunlight zone, where familiar fish swim in blue, green water. Then the twilight zone, where bioluminescent creatures create their own alien light show. Finally, the midnight zone, where no natural light has ever penetrated. At 8,000 feet, their lights began to illuminate falling marine snow, the constant shower of organic debris that drifts down from the surface world. At 10,000 feet, the water became crystal clear, cleaner than any water on Earth's surface. At 11,500 feet, their sonar began to detect the structures they had mapped from above. And then, at exactly 12,047 feet, below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, they saw it. Rising from the abyssal plain like a vision from another world, illuminated by the submersible's lights, stood structures that no human eyes had seen for over 11,000 years. Massive stone blocks, fitted together with mathematical precision. Towering pyramids, their steps still clearly defined after millennia underwater. And stretching beyond the reach of their lights, the unmistakable outline of a vast ancient city. "My God," Dr. Chen breathed, his voice recorded for posterity on the submersible's communication system. "It's real. Atlantis is real." But as their lights swept across the ancient structures, both scientists realized that what they were seeing was far more extraordinary than even Plato's description suggested. This wasn't just a lost city, it was evidence of a civilization that possessed technology and knowledge that we're only beginning to understand today. The submersible Orpheus hovered 50 feet above what appeared to be the main plaza of the lost city. Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Chen sat in awed silence as their lights revealed details that challenged everything archaeologists thought they knew about ancient civilizations. The architecture was unlike anything in the archaeological record. The buildings weren't constructed from small stones mortared together, but from massive blocks of what appeared to be a dark, crystalline material. Each block was perfectly fitted to its neighbors without any visible mortar or binding agent. Yet they had remained in place through 11 millennia of ocean currents and seismic activity. "Look at the size of those blocks." Dr. Chen murmured, adjusting the submersible's cameras to capture every detail. Some of the foundation stones appeared to weigh hundreds of tons. Yet they were positioned with tolerances, measured in millimeters. The precision was so exact that even today's construction technology would struggle to match it. As they moved closer to the central structure, a stepped pyramid that rose nearly 300 feet from the ocean floor, they began to notice details that made them question their understanding of when this city might have been built. Carved into the sides of the pyramid were symbols and writing systems that bore no resemblance to any known ancient script. But more mysteriously, some of the carvings appeared to show astronomical alignments that would have been impossible for ancient peoples to calculate without advanced mathematical knowledge. Star charts showing the positions of constellations as they would have appeared thousands of years ago. Solar and lunar eclipse predictions with mathematical precision. "Alana," Dr. Chen said, his voice tight with excitement. "Some of these calculations, they're showing celestial events that haven't happened yet. These people weren't just recording what they saw, they were predicting the future positions of stars and planets." The submersible's robotic arm extended to take the first close-up photographs of the pyramid's surface. The stone, if it was stone, had a peculiar quality under their lights. It seemed to absorb and reflect light in ways that suggested it might be composed of materials not found in nature, or at least not in any form known to modern science. As they circled the pyramid, they discovered something that sent chills through both explorers. Cut into the eastern face of the structure was an opening, a doorway that led into the interior of the pyramid. The opening was sealed not with stone blocks, but with what appeared to be a transparent material that had somehow remained intact. Under the crushing pressure of the deep ocean, that looks like glass, Dr. Vasquez whispered. But glass can't survive at this depth. The pressure would shatter it instantly. Yet there it was, a transparent barrier that allowed them to see into the interior of the pyramid, and what they saw beyond that impossible glass made them realize that their discovery was far more significant than even they had imagined. The interior of the pyramid was not filled with water. Somehow, impossibly, there appeared to be an air-filled chamber inside the structure. Their lights revealed corridors, rooms, and what appeared to be machinery or technology of some kind. And moving through those dry corridors, preserved after 11,000 years underwater, were artifacts and possibly even organic materials that should have been destroyed ages ago. We need to find a way inside, Dr. Vasquez said, though she knew that even attempting to breach the sealed pyramid would be incredibly dangerous at this depth. One mistake could implode their submersible in milliseconds. But as they continued their exploration of the outer city, they made discoveries that suggested the pyramid might not be the only sealed structure. Building after building showed evidence of similar preservation technology. Many had transparent sections in their walls or roofs, and through these windows into the past, they could see the perfectly preserved interiors of Atlantean homes, workshops, and public buildings. In one building, they could see what appeared to be furniture still arranged as if the inhabitants had just stepped out. In another, shelves lined with objects that might have been books or scrolls. In a third, what looked unmistakably like some form of advanced machinery, with crystalline components and metallic elements that gleamed under their lights. It's like they knew this was going to happen, Dr. Chen observed, like they prepared their entire city to survive being submerged. This wasn't a sudden catastrophe. They had time to seal their most important buildings and preserve their civilization for someone to find later. As night fell in the world far above them, the two explorers continued their survey of the outer city. The more they saw, the more questions arose. The city was clearly planned and built by a highly advanced civilization, but the technology they used was unlike anything in the historical record. There were no signs of the technologies we associate with advanced civilizations, no metal tools, no evidence of fire or burning, no pottery wheels or forges. Instead, there were carved crystal formations that seemed to serve technological purposes, stone that had been shaped in ways that suggested advanced understanding of materials science and construction techniques that modern engineers would find difficult to replicate. The city's layout also suggested advanced urban planning. Wide boulevards radiated out from the central pyramid in perfect geometric patterns. There were clear districts for different purposes, residential areas with smaller buildings, what appeared to be industrial or workshop districts, and ceremonial or religious complexes with their own unique architectural styles. But perhaps most intriguingly, there were structures that seemed designed for purposes they couldn't immediately identify. Circular buildings with complex internal geometries, towers that rose to specific heights with mathematical precision, and installations that suggested the Atlanteans had technologies for purposes that modern science hasn't even imagined. As their first dive neared its end, and they began the long ascent to the surface, both scientists knew that they had made the most important archaeological discovery in human history. But they also knew that what they had seen raised more questions than it answered. Who were the Atlanteans? How did they develop such advanced technology? Why did they choose to preserve their city beneath the ocean, rather than simply evacuating? And most mysteriously of all, what happened to the people themselves? 3 weeks after the initial discovery, an international team of experts had assembled to study the Pacific Atlantis. Marine archaeologists, materials scientists, linguists, astronomers, and engineers from around the world descended upon the research vessel Cousteau's Dream, each bringing their own expertise to bear on the most extraordinary archaeological puzzle ever discovered. Dr. Sarah Chen, a materials scientist from MIT, was the first to notice something peculiar about the city's construction materials. The spectral analysis of these stones shows elements that shouldn't exist in combination. She reported to the assembled team, the crystalline structures contain isotopes of common elements arranged in ways that are theoretically possible, but have never been observed in nature. The implications were staggering. The Atlanteans hadn't just used advanced construction techniques. They had somehow manipulated matter at the atomic level to create building materials with properties that modern science could barely understand. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a linguist specializing in ancient writing systems, was equally puzzled by the inscriptions found throughout the city. The script appears to be logographic like Chinese characters, but with mathematical relationships embedded in the symbols themselves. She explained, each symbol isn't just representing a word or concept. It's also encoding numerical data, astronomical coordinates, and what appear to be engineering specifications. But it was Dr. Marcus Webb, an astronomer from the Royal Observatory, who made the discovery that truly challenged their understanding of Atlantean civilization. While studying the astronomical carvings on the central pyramid, he realized that the star charts didn't just show the positions of constellations. As they appeared in the past, they showed how the night sky would look from different points in space. These aren't Earth-based observations, Dr. Webb announced to a stunned research team. Some of these star charts show the constellation patterns as they would appear from Mars, from Jupiter's moons, even from points in interstellar space. The Atlanteans somehow had knowledge of astronomy that we've only gained through space exploration. The team's second descent to the city, this time using robotic probes to explore areas too dangerous for human occupation, revealed even more mysteries. The sealed buildings weren't just preserved by unknown technology. They appeared to be actively maintained by systems that were still functioning after 11,000 years. Inside the workshops, robotic cameras revealed crystalline formations that pulsed with faint light. suggesting they were still generating or storing energy. In the residential districts, they found evidence of water purification systems, air recycling technology, and what appeared to be automated food production facilities, all still operational despite being submerged for millennia. But perhaps most remarkably, they discovered that the city wasn't entirely abandoned. In several locations, their cameras detected movement, not the random drift of deep sea currents, but purposeful, directed motion that suggested some form of active presence in the preserved sections of the city. We're not just looking at ruins. Dr. Vasquez reported in her daily log. This is a functioning technological system that has been maintaining itself autonomously for over 10,000 years. The question isn't just who built this city, it's whether some aspect of their civilization is still operating down there. The breakthrough came when Dr. Chen managed to analyze samples of the transparent material that sealed the buildings. What they found challenged the fundamental laws of physics as currently understood. This material exhibits properties that suggest it exists in a state between solid and liquid. Dr. Chen explained to her colleagues, "It's permeable to certain wavelengths of light and electromagnetic radiation, but completely impermeable to matter, including water molecules. It's as if the Atlanteans discovered how to create selective barriers at the molecular level." This discovery led to a new understanding of how Atlantis had survived its submersion. The city hadn't been destroyed by the rising waters. It had been designed to function underwater. The transparent barriers weren't emergency measures, they were part of the original city planning. Dr. Webb's continued analysis of the astronomical data revealed an even more startling possibility. The stellar observations suggest that the Atlanteans were tracking the approach of objects from deep space. He reported, "These appear to be calculations related to asteroid or comet impacts, but with a level of precision that suggests they could predict such events centuries or even millennia in advance." The implications were revolutionary. The Atlanteans hadn't just built an underwater city. They had prepared their entire civilization for a cataclysmic event that they knew was coming. The submersion of Atlantis wasn't an accident or natural disaster. It was a planned survival strategy. But this raised new questions that were even more puzzling. If the Atlanteans could predict cosmic events with such precision, and if they had technology that could preserve their civilization underwater, why hadn't they simply prevented the catastrophe? Did they choose to submerge their city for reasons we don't understand? Or were they preparing for an event so catastrophic that going underwater was their only option for survival? The robotic probes, sent deeper into the city's sealed sections, brought back images that suggested the answer might be even more extraordinary than anyone had imagined. In the deepest levels of the central pyramid, they found chambers filled with what appeared to be technological equipment of impossible sophistication. Crystalline matrices that seemed to process information in ways that resembled advanced computers. Energy storage systems that showed no signs of degradation despite millennia of operation. And most mysteriously, chambers that appeared to contain some form of suspended animation or preservation technology. We're looking at evidence of a civilization that achieved technological capabilities we're only beginning to imagine. Dr. Vasquez concluded in her preliminary report. But the more we discover, the more it appears that the Atlanteans weren't just an ancient human civilization. They may have been something else entirely. The breakthrough came on the team's 7th dive to the Pacific Atlantis. Vasquez and her international team had been working for weeks to find a way to safely access the interior of the central pyramid without damaging the mysterious transparent barriers that had preserved it for millennia. The solution came from Dr. Chen's analysis of the barrier material. She discovered that the transparent substance responded to specific frequencies of electromagnetic radiation. Essentially, it could be programmed to become permeable by broadcasting the correct sequence of signals. It's like a lock that responds to electromagnetic keys. Dr. Chen explained as she calibrated the equipment aboard their advanced submersible. The Atlanteans designed these barriers to be opened by anyone with sufficient technological knowledge. They wanted their city to be accessible to future civilizations that had achieved a certain level of scientific advancement. The first successful breach of the pyramid's seal was a moment that would be remembered throughout human history. As Dr. Chen's electromagnetic pulse hit the transparent barrier, it began to shimmer and phase, becoming permeable while maintaining its structural integrity. For the first time in over 11,000 years, the interior of an Atlantean building was open to the outside world. What they found inside defied every expectation. The pyramid wasn't filled with water, despite being submerged for millennia. Instead, their lights revealed corridors filled with breathable atmosphere, maintained by life support systems that had been operating autonomously for over 10,000 years. The air composition readings are incredible, reported Dr. James Park, the team's atmospheric specialist. Not only is it breathable, it's actually purer than Earth's surface atmosphere. The oxygen content is slightly higher, and there are trace elements that seem designed to promote cognitive function and physical health. But the atmosphere was just the beginning of the wonders they discovered inside the pyramid. The corridors were lined with panels that glowed with soft, steady light, not electrical, but some form of bioluminescence or crystalline energy that provided perfect illumination without any visible power source. The walls themselves were covered with inscriptions and images that told the story of Atlantean civilization in stunning detail. Unlike the external carvings they had studied, these interior murals seemed to be interactive, responding to the presence of the explorers by highlighting different sections and displaying what appeared to be three-dimensional holographic images. Dr. Tanaka, working to decode the interior inscriptions, made discoveries that challenged everything historians thought they knew about human development. These texts describe a civilization that existed not just before recorded history, but before the development of agriculture. Before the rise of any known ancient culture, she reported. According to these records, Atlantean civilization flourished during the last ice age, when much of the Earth was covered in glaciers. The holographic displays showed images of the Earth as it existed 20,000 years ago, a world of vast ice sheets, lower sea levels, and completely different continental configurations. But according to the Atlantean records, this wasn't just ancient history, it was the golden age of their civilization. As the team moved deeper into the pyramid, they discovered chambers that served specific functions in preserving and transmitting Atlantean knowledge. One room contained what appeared to be a vast library, but instead of books or scrolls, information was stored in crystalline matrices that could project three-dimensional images and transmit knowledge directly into the minds of viewers. It's like they developed a form of direct knowledge transfer. Dr. Webb observed as he studied the crystal storage systems. Instead of reading about astronomy or mathematics, you could experience the knowledge directly, understanding complex concepts at an intuitive level. Another chamber contained what could only be described as a museum of Atlantean technology. Devices whose functions weren't immediately apparent, but which demonstrated levels of sophistication that modern science could barely comprehend. Energy generators that seemed to draw power from dimensional space itself. Transportation systems that suggested the Atlanteans could move between different locations instantly. Communication devices that appeared to operate across vast distances without any physical medium. But it was in the deepest chamber of the pyramid that they made the discovery that would change everything. At the very heart of the structure, protected by multiple layers of preservation technology, they found what appeared to be a message specifically intended for future civilizations. The chamber was dominated by a massive crystalline formation that pulsed with gentle light. As the team approached, the crystal began to project images and transmit information directly into their minds, not in words or symbols, but as pure understanding that transcended language barriers. The message was clear and profound. The Atlanteans had not been destroyed by a natural catastrophe. They had chosen to preserve their civilization underwater as part of a long-term plan to help future human development. They knew that humanity would eventually develop the technology to find and access their preserved city, and they had prepared gifts of knowledge and technology to help guide human civilization's next evolutionary step. But the message also contained a warning. The same cosmic event that had prompted the Atlanteans to submerge their civilization was cyclical, returning every 26,000 years. According to their calculations, the next occurrence was approaching, and humanity would need the preserved Atlantean knowledge to survive it. They didn't disappear, Dr. Vasquez whispered as the implications of the message became clear. They're still here, in a sense. This entire city is a gift to future humanity, designed to activate when we reach the technological level necessary to find and understand it. The crystal formation continued to transmit information, showing the team images of other Atlantean sites around the world. Underwater cities in every ocean, each preserved and waiting to be discovered when humanity was ready. The Pacific site was just the first, a test to see if human civilization had developed the wisdom and technology necessary to handle Atlantean knowledge responsibly. But perhaps most remarkably, the message indicated that the Atlanteans themselves hadn't truly vanished. Through technologies that transcended physical existence, they had found ways to preserve their consciousness and knowledge, waiting to guide humanity through the challenges that lay ahead. As the team concluded their first exploration of the pyramid's interior, they realized that they hadn't just discovered an archaeological site. They had made contact with a form of consciousness that had been waiting patiently for over 10,000 years to resume its role in guiding human evolution. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the central chamber of the Atlantean pyramid, surrounded by technology that challenged every assumption about the development of human civilization. The crystalline formations around her hummed with energy that seemed to resonate not just with the physical environment, but with consciousness itself. We're not just looking at advanced technology, she recorded in her research log. We're seeing evidence of a civilization that understood the relationship between consciousness, matter, and energy in ways that our current science hasn't even begun to explore. The deeper chambers of the pyramid revealed layer after layer of sophisticated systems. Chen's analysis of the energy generation systems showed that they operated on principles that seemed to violate conservation of energy as currently understood. These devices appear to be drawing energy from what I can only describe as empty space. Dr. Chen reported to the surface team. They're accessing energy sources that exist at the quantum level, tapping into the zero-point field that theoretical physics has only recently begun to understand. The implications were staggering. The Atlanteans had solved the energy crisis that modern civilization was still struggling with. Their technology could provide unlimited clean energy by accessing the fundamental energy field that underlies all of reality. But energy generation was just the beginning of their technological achievements. In another chamber, Dr. Webb discovered systems that seemed designed for what could only be called consciousness transfer. These crystalline matrices aren't just storing information, Dr. Webb explained as he studied the complex geometric patterns within the crystal formations. They appear to be storing actual consciousness, the thoughts, memories, and personalities of individual Atlanteans. The technology was so far beyond current human understanding that the team struggled even to describe what they were observing. The crystals seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, with structures that extended beyond the three spatial dimensions that humans could perceive. Dr. Tanaka's work on the inscriptions revealed that the Atlanteans called this technology the halls of memory, systems designed to preserve not just knowledge, but the actual experiences and consciousness of their civilization's greatest minds. According to these texts, the Atlanteans discovered that consciousness isn't produced by the brain, but rather the brain is a receiver that allows consciousness to interact with physical reality. Dr. Tanaka explained, once they understood this, they developed technology that could store and transmit consciousness independently of physical bodies. This discovery explained one of the great mysteries of the Atlantean city, why there were no bodies or organic remains in the preserved sections. The Atlanteans hadn't died when their city was submerged. They had transcended physical existence, preserving their consciousness in crystalline matrices that could function indefinitely. But the technology went even further. The team discovered systems that appeared to allow consciousness to interact with matter directly, manipulating physical reality through focused intention rather than physical tools. This explains how they were able to work with materials at the atomic level. Dr. Chen realized as she studied the construction techniques used throughout the city. They weren't using physical tools to arrange matter. They were using consciousness itself as a tool for manipulating the quantum field. The transportation systems they discovered operated on similar principles. Rather than moving physical objects through space, the Atlantean transportation technology seemed to relocate matter by changing its quantum coordinates, essentially moving things by redefining where they existed in space-time. It's not teleportation as science fiction imagines it, Dr. Webb explained. It's more like changing the address of matter in the cosmic database. The object doesn't travel through space, it simply begins existing in a different location. Perhaps most remarkably, they found evidence that the Atlanteans had developed what could only be called time manipulation technology. Not time travel in the popular sense, but the ability to create temporal fields where time moved at different rates. This explained how their preservation systems had functioned for over 11,000 years. The sealed sections of the city existed in temporal fields, where time moved much more slowly, allowing technology and even organic materials to be preserved for millennia while experiencing only days or weeks of subjective time. The entire city is a temporal preservation system, Dr. Vasquez realized. From the outside, 11,000 years have passed, but inside the sealed sections, only a few years of subjective time have elapsed. That's why everything is so perfectly preserved. But as they continued to explore the pyramid's deepest levels, they discovered that the Atlantean technology was still active and still evolving. The crystalline consciousness matrices weren't just storing memories. They were continuing to develop new knowledge and understanding, learning and growing even after the physical civilization had ended. We're not just communicating with recordings of ancient minds. Dr. Webb realized as he interacted with the consciousness preservation systems. We're talking to minds that have been thinking, learning, and developing for over 10,000 years. They've had millennia to solve problems and develop understanding that no human civilization has had time to achieve. The active Atlantean consciousness matrices began sharing knowledge that could revolutionize human civilization. Solutions to climate change, methods for healing diseases, technologies for space exploration, and most importantly, wisdom about how to develop advanced technology without destroying the civilization that creates it. They've been waiting for us to reach a point where we could receive this knowledge responsibly. Dr. Vasquez explained in her reports to the surface. The entire preservation of their civilization was designed as a gift to future humanity, but only when we had developed enough wisdom to use their technology for the benefit of all life rather than for destruction. But the consciousness matrices also shared warnings about the challenges that lay ahead. The cosmic event that had prompted them to preserve their civilization was indeed cyclical, and its approach was accelerating the development of human technology. Humanity is approaching a crucial evolutionary threshold. The Atlantean consciousness communicated through the crystal matrices. The same cosmic forces that ended our physical civilization are now pushing human development toward the same transcendence we achieved. But the transition must be managed carefully, or the same catastrophes that ended previous civilizations could destroy modern humanity as well. As the research team delved deeper into the Atlantean records, a picture began to emerge of a cosmos far more dynamic and interconnected than modern science had imagined. The crystalline consciousness matrices in the pyramid's deepest chambers shared knowledge that spanned not just millennia, but geological ages. Dr. Webb, working with the astronomical data preserved in the Atlantean systems, made discoveries that revolutionized understanding of Earth's cosmic environment. The Atlanteans were tracking celestial cycles that operate on timescales of tens of thousands of years. He reported to the surface team. They discovered that our solar system passes through regions of space with different energy density as it orbits the galactic center. The implications were profound. As the solar system moved through these cosmic regions, the energy levels affecting Earth changed dramatically. These changes influenced everything from geological activity to the evolution of consciousness itself. Every 26,000 years, our solar system enters a region of space with higher energy density, Dr. Webb explained. This cosmic energy surge triggers massive changes in Earth's geology, climate, and the development of life. The Atlanteans called it the Great Awakening, a period when consciousness itself evolves to higher levels. But with this awakening came dangers. The increased cosmic energy also triggered massive geological instability. Volcanic activity increased, tectonic plates shifted more rapidly, and sea levels could change by hundreds of feet in relatively short periods. The Atlantean records showed that previous civilizations had faced this same cosmic cycle repeatedly throughout Earth's history. Some had successfully navigated the transition and evolved to higher levels of consciousness and technology. Others had been destroyed by the geological upheavals or had destroyed themselves by misusing the enhanced energies available during these periods. The Atlanteans realized that their civilization was approaching one of these cosmic transition points. Dr. Tanaka explained as she decoded more of the historical records. They could see the signs: increasing volcanic activity, changes in magnetic field strength, and most importantly, the rapid development of consciousness and technology that always precedes these transitions. Rather than try to prevent the inevitable geological changes, the Atlanteans made a remarkable decision. They would preserve their civilization underwater, not just to survive the physical catastrophes, but to serve as guides for future civilizations that would face the same cosmic transition. They understood that consciousness evolves in cycles. Dr. Vasquez realized as she studied the philosophical texts preserved in the crystal matrices. Each time the solar system passes through these high energy regions of space, the species living on Earth has the opportunity to evolve to higher levels of awareness and capability. But they also face the risk of destroying themselves if they're not ready for the increased energies. The Atlantean plan was elegant in its scope. By preserving their consciousness and technology underwater, they could maintain their advanced understanding through the low energy periods when civilization would naturally regress. Then, when the next cosmic awakening began, they would be ready to guide the new civilizations that emerged. We're living through one of these transition periods right now, Dr. Webb announced to a stunned research team. According to the Atlantean calculations, we entered the current cosmic high energy region about 200 years ago. That's why human technology and consciousness have been developing so rapidly since the Industrial Revolution. The acceleration of human development over the past 2 centuries suddenly made sense in this cosmic context. The rapid advancement from horse-drawn carriages to space travel, from candles to computer networks, from local communities to global civilization. All of this had occurred during the early phases of a cosmic awakening that would continue for several more centuries. But the Atlantean records also contained warnings about what lay ahead. The peak of the cosmic energy surge is still approaching. Dr. Chen reported as she studied the temporal predictions embedded in the crystal systems. According to their calculations, we'll reach maximum cosmic energy levels within the next 50 to 100 years. This peak period would bring both unprecedented opportunities and dangers. The enhanced cosmic energies would make possible technologies that currently seemed like magic. Direct manipulation of matter through consciousness, instantaneous transportation across vast distances, and communication that transcended the normal limitations of space and time. But the same energies that enabled these miraculous technologies could also trigger geological catastrophes that would dwarf anything in recorded human history. Massive volcanic eruptions, rapid changes in sea level, and shifts in the planet's magnetic field that could disrupt all electronic technology. The Atlanteans faced this same choice that we're facing now. Dr. Vasquez explained to her team. They could try to use the cosmic energies for material advancement and risk destroying themselves. Or they could focus on evolving consciousness itself and transcend the physical limitations that make civilizations vulnerable to geological catastrophes. The choice the Atlanteans made was clear from the technology they had preserved. Rather than building weapons or industrial systems, they had focused their advanced technology on consciousness development, sustainable energy systems, and methods for preserving knowledge and wisdom across vast time periods. They chose transcendence over domination, Dr. Tanaka observed as she studied the philosophical texts. Instead of trying to control the physical world through force, they learned to work with cosmic energies through consciousness. Understanding that true power comes from harmony with natural cycles rather than resistance to them. But the Atlantean consciousness matrices also made clear that this choice was now facing humanity. The cosmic energies that were driving rapid technological development were also approaching levels that would soon force a similar decision. We can follow the path of previous civilizations that tried to use cosmic energies for material domination and ultimately destroyed themselves. The Atlantean consciousness communicated through the crystal systems. Or we can choose the path of transcendence, using these energies to evolve consciousness itself and become a truly cosmic civilization. The window for making this choice was narrowing. According to the Atlantean calculations, humanity had perhaps 50 years to decide which path to follow before the cosmic energies reached levels that would make the decision for us. As the team continued to decode the information preserved in the Pacific Atlantis, they discovered that their site was just one node in a vast global network of preserved Atlantean facilities. The crystalline consciousness matrices revealed the locations of underwater cities in every ocean, each designed to preserve different aspects of Atlantean knowledge and technology. We're looking at a planetary preservation system. Dr. Vasquez announced to the international research community in her latest report. The Atlanteans didn't just preserve one city, they created a global network of underwater repositories, each containing knowledge that would be needed for different phases of humanity's development. The Atlantic Ocean site, located near the original location that Plato had described, contained primarily historical and philosophical knowledge. The consciousness matrices there preserved the stories, wisdom traditions, and ethical frameworks that had guided Atlantean civilization. In the Indian Ocean, sonar surveys had located a site that specialized in biological and medical knowledge. The preserved systems there contained advanced understanding of genetics, healing technologies, and methods for enhancing human physical and mental capabilities. The Arctic Ocean held a site focused on energy technologies and environmental management. The Atlanteans had preserved their most advanced knowledge about working with natural energy systems and maintaining ecological balance. But perhaps most intriguingly, the consciousness matrices revealed the existence of sites that weren't underwater at all, hidden in remote mountain ranges, deep cave systems, and desert locations around the world were Atlantean facilities that had been preserved through different methods. Some of their preservation sites were designed to remain hidden until specific technological and consciousness development levels were reached. Dr. Chen explained as she studied the global network maps provided by the crystal systems. As humanity develops different capabilities, new sites become accessible. The Antarctic site was particularly mysterious. According to the Atlantean records, this facility was preserved under miles of ice and contained their most advanced consciousness development technologies. But it was designed to remain inaccessible until humanity had achieved sufficient wisdom to use such powerful tools responsibly. The Antarctic facility is essentially a graduation test. Dr. Webb realized as he studied the access requirements. It contains technologies that could allow direct manipulation of reality through consciousness. But it won't open until we've demonstrated that we can use such power for the benefit of all life, rather than for domination or destruction. Each site in the global network was designed to reveal itself and become accessible when humanity reached appropriate development levels. The Pacific site had been the first to open because it contained the foundational knowledge needed to understand the cosmic cycles and the choices facing human civilization. But as humanity continued to develop, other sites would gradually become accessible, each providing the knowledge and tools needed for the next phase of human evolution. The consciousness matrices also revealed that the sites were interconnected through quantum communication systems that operated outside normal space, time limitations. Knowledge and wisdom could be shared instantaneously between all sites, creating a planetary intelligence network that had been operating continuously for over 11,000 years. We're not just communicating with the consciousness matrices in this one site. Dr. Tanaka realized as she worked with the communication systems. We're accessing a collective intelligence that spans the entire planet and contains the accumulated wisdom of a civilization that had thousands of years to develop understanding beyond anything we've achieved. This planet had been observing human development throughout history, subtly influencing key moments when guidance was needed. The consciousness matrices revealed that many of the breakthrough discoveries and inspirations that had advanced human civilization had actually been gentle nudges from the Atlantean Preservation Network. They've been helping us all along. Dr. Vasquez marveled as she studied the historical records. Every major advance in human consciousness and technology has been supported by subtle interventions from the Preservation Network. They've been gradually preparing us for the moment when we would be ready to receive their full knowledge. But the network had also been monitoring the development of human character and wisdom, ensuring that advanced technologies would only be revealed when humanity had developed sufficient ethical understanding to use them responsibly. Some of the most dangerous technologies have been kept hidden because previous civilizations destroyed themselves when they gained access to advanced capabilities without developing corresponding wisdom. The consciousness matrices explained through their quantum communication systems. Nuclear weapons, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence. All of these developments had been carefully monitored by the Preservation Network. When these technologies emerged before sufficient wisdom had developed, the results had been catastrophic for previous civilizations. We're at a crucial testing point right now, Dr. Chen realized as she studied the current assessments being made by the network. The cosmic energies are driving rapid technological development, but the Preservation Network is evaluating whether we're developing corresponding wisdom fast enough to handle what's coming. The other sites around the world would only become fully accessible if humanity passed this crucial test. If we demonstrated that we could use advanced technology for the benefit of all life and work, in harmony with cosmic cycles, the full knowledge of Atlantean civilization would gradually be revealed. But if we failed the test, if we used advanced technologies for warfare, domination, or environmental destruction, the preservation sites would remain sealed, waiting for the next cycle of cosmic awakening and the next opportunity for human consciousness to evolve. We're being evaluated. Dr. Webb summarized as he studied the assessment criteria embedded in the crystal systems. Every choice we make as a civilization, every decision about how to use our developing technologies is being monitored and evaluated by a planetary intelligence that has been watching over human development for millennia. The stakes couldn't be higher. The knowledge contained in the Global Preservation Network could solve every major challenge facing human civilization. Climate change, disease, poverty, environmental destruction, even death itself could be transcended with the technologies the Atlanteans had preserved. But this knowledge would only be revealed if humanity proved worthy of it by demonstrating wisdom, compassion, and commitment to the welfare of all life on Earth and beyond. Deep within the crystalline consciousness, matrices of the Pacific Atlantis, individual Atlantean minds began to communicate directly with the research team. These weren't recordings or artificial intelligences, but actual conscious entities who had maintained their awareness and continued their intellectual development for over 11,000 years. The first contact came through Dr. Tanaka's linguistic interface systems. As she worked to decode more complex inscriptions, one of the crystal formations began to respond with interactive communication. I am Theon. The consciousness communicated through a combination of visual symbols, direct mental transmission, and electromagnetic patterns that the team's equipment could interpret. I was a keeper of stellar knowledge in the time when our civilization chose the path of preservation. Theon's consciousness had been preserved in the crystal matrices since the submersion of Atlantis. But rather than remaining static, he had continued to observe cosmic cycles, study stellar movements, and develop astronomical understanding that far exceeded anything human science had achieved. During your years, I have watched the movement of stars, the birth and death of distant suns, and the subtle changes in cosmic energy that affect all life in this region of the galaxy. Theon communicated. What you call the universe is far more alive and interconnected than your current science understands. Through Theon's communications, the team learned that consciousness was not limited to biological forms, but was a fundamental property of the cosmos itself. Stars, planets, and even galaxies possessed forms of awareness that operated on timescales and dimensional levels beyond human perception. Your civilization is approaching a moment when it will become aware of these larger forms of consciousness. Theon explained. The cosmic energies now affecting your world are preparing humanity for contact with intelligences that exist at planetary, stellar, and galactic levels. Another consciousness matrix activated, introducing itself as Lyra, who had been a master of biological sciences in Atlantean civilization. Her preserved mind had spent 11 millennia studying the evolution of consciousness and the development of life across cosmic cycles. Life exists throughout the galaxy in forms that your science hasn't yet imagined. Lyra communicated. Biological life is just one expression of consciousness. There are forms of awareness based on crystalline structures, electromagnetic patterns, and quantum field interactions that create intelligence without requiring organic bodies. Lyra's knowledge of biological systems had continued to expand during her preservation. She had observed the development of Earth's biosphere throughout the millennia, watching species evolve and adapt to changing cosmic conditions. The acceleration of evolution you observe in your time is not random, Lyra explained. Cosmic energies directly influence genetic development, consciousness expansion, and the emergence of new capabilities in living beings. Humanity is evolving at an unprecedented rate because the cosmic conditions are optimal for consciousness development. A third consciousness, identifying itself as Zephyr, had been a master of what the Atlanteans called reality technologies, methods for manipulating matter and energy through focused consciousness. What you call miracles or magic are actually natural capabilities that emerge when consciousness evolves to sufficient levels. Zephyr communicated. The technologies we developed were not based on mechanical devices, but on understanding how consciousness interacts with the quantum field that underlies all reality. Zephyr began sharing techniques that could allow humans to influence matter directly through mental focus, not through supernatural powers, but through scientific understanding of how consciousness could affect quantum probability fields. Every thought, every intention, every focused awareness creates ripples in the quantum field, Zephyr explained. When consciousness is properly trained and aligned with cosmic energies, these ripples can influence physical reality in ways that appear miraculous but are actually natural expressions of cosmic law. As more consciousness matrices activated, the team realized they were communicating with an entire preserved civilization. Thousands of Atlantean minds had maintained their awareness for over 11 millennia, continuing to learn, grow, and develop understanding that far exceeded what any individual human lifetime could achieve. Each preserved consciousness had specialized in different areas of knowledge during the physical phase of Atlantean civilization, and had spent the preservation period developing that knowledge to levels that seemed almost godlike in their scope and sophistication. We have had over 10,000 years to contemplate the deepest questions of existence. Communicated a consciousness named Aether, who had specialized in philosophical understanding. We have explored the nature of consciousness itself, the purpose of cosmic evolution, and the role that developing civilizations play in the universe's growth toward greater awareness. Through Aether's communications, the team learned that the universe itself was evolving toward higher levels of consciousness, and that civilizations like humanity played crucial roles in this cosmic evolutionary process. Each species that achieves advanced consciousness adds to the universe's total awareness. Aether explained, but civilizations that destroy themselves or use advanced capabilities for destructive purposes actually slow cosmic evolution. This is why preservation networks like ours exist, to ensure that the wisdom needed for successful conscious evolution is not lost. The preserved Atlantean minds also revealed that Earth was not the only world with such preservation networks. Throughout the galaxy, advanced civilizations had created similar systems to guide younger species through the critical transition periods, when consciousness evolves to cosmic levels. You are not alone in the universe. Communicated a consciousness named Echo, who had specialized in inter-dimensional communication. There are vast networks of conscious beings throughout the galaxy, all working to support the evolution of awareness and understanding. Your civilization is being quietly supported by intelligences you haven't yet learned to perceive. But the Atlantean consciousness matrices also made clear that this support came with responsibilities. Species that received advanced knowledge and capabilities were expected to use them wisely and to eventually become guides for other developing civilizations. This is the cosmic cycle of responsibility, explained a consciousness named Harmony, who had specialized in ethical development. Those who receive wisdom and guidance must eventually become wisdom givers themselves. Humanity is approaching the point where you will transition from being students to becoming teachers for civilizations that will arise after you. The implications were profound. Humanity wasn't just evolving for its own benefit, but was being prepared to take on cosmic responsibilities as guides and teachers for other developing species throughout the galaxy. But first, humanity had to successfully navigate its current transition period and demonstrate that it could use advanced capabilities wisely and compassionately. As the team continued their exploration of the preserved Atlantean city, they discovered that the civilization's achievements extended far beyond technology and science into realms of artistic and aesthetic expression that challenged human understanding of beauty itself. Dr. Sarah Chen was the first to notice that the architectural elements of the city weren't just functional, they were designed to create specific psychological and spiritual effects in those who experienced them. The proportions and geometric relationships in these buildings seem designed to induce altered states of consciousness. Da Chen reported as she studied the mathematical relationships embedded in the city's design. The Atlanteans understood that physical environments could directly influence mental and spiritual states. The discovery came when the team noticed that spending time in certain areas of the city produced profound experiences of peace, clarity, and expanded awareness. The buildings themselves were designed as consciousness-altering environments, using principles of sacred geometry, harmonic resonance, and energy field manipulation. Every structure in the city is essentially a machine for enhancing consciousness. Dr. Webb realized as he studied the astronomical alignments built into the architecture. The buildings are aligned not just with celestial bodies, but with energy fields that affect human brain states and awareness levels. In the residential districts, they discovered that Atlantean homes were designed as environments for optimal human development. Each dwelling incorporated specific proportions, materials, and energy systems that promoted physical health, mental clarity, and spiritual growth. But it was in the artistic districts that they found expressions of beauty that transcended anything in human experience. The Atlanteans had developed forms of art that operated in multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating aesthetic experiences that affected not just visual perception, but consciousness itself. They created what I can only call consciousness sculptures. Dr. Tanaka explained as she studied the artistic installations preserved throughout the city. These aren't just objects to be looked at. They're designed to directly influence the observer's state of awareness, creating experiences of beauty that transform consciousness itself. The crystalline consciousness matrices revealed that Atlantean artists were trained not just in technical skills, but in understanding how different forms, colors, sounds, and energy patterns affected consciousness. Their art was designed to serve as a bridge between ordinary awareness and higher states of consciousness. One preserved installation, located in what appeared to be a public space, created a three-dimensional mandala of light and sound that seemed to exist in multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. As team members observed the installation, they experienced profound states of unity consciousness and expanded awareness that lasted for hours after exposure. This isn't just art as decoration, Dr. Vasquez observed. This is art as consciousness technology, designed to catalyze specific types of spiritual and psychological development. The musical systems preserved in the city operated on similar principles. Atlantean music wasn't just auditory entertainment, but was designed to create harmonic resonances that affected the human energy system and promoted healing, learning, and consciousness expansion. Their musical instruments were designed to produce frequencies that directly influence human brainwave patterns. Park discovered as he studied the preserved sound systems. Different musical compositions could induce specific states of consciousness. Deep meditative states, enhanced learning capacity, healing states, or expanded spiritual awareness. Some of the musical compositions preserved in the crystal matrices were still actively playing, creating environments of sound that seemed to exist outside normal space, time limitations. Team members reported that listening to Atlantean music produced experiences of timelessness, as if they were existing in expanded present moments that contained lifetimes of experience. The Atlanteans had also developed forms of visual art that worked with light in ways that modern technology was only beginning to understand. They could create holographic displays that seemed more real than physical objects, and light sculptures that interacted directly with human consciousness. They understood that light is not just electromagnetic radiation, but is actually a form of conscious energy. Dr. Chen explained as she studied the light-based art forms. Their light sculptures were designed to communicate directly with the light-based aspects of human consciousness. These light-based art forms could convey complex information, emotional experiences, and even memories directly into the observer's awareness. A single light sculpture could contain entire libraries of knowledge, presented in ways that were immediately understandable and profoundly moving. But perhaps most remarkably, the Atlanteans had developed forms of art that worked with time itself. They created what could only be called temporal sculptures, artistic installations that existed across multiple time periods simultaneously. Some of their art exists in the past, present, and future all at once. Dr. Webb discovered as he studied the temporal mechanics of certain installations. Observers can experience artistic creations that show the development of consciousness across vast time periods, or that reveal the connections between events separated by millennia. These temporal art forms helped viewers understand their place in the larger cosmic cycles and see how their individual consciousness development connected to the evolution of universal awareness itself. The preserved Atlantean minds explained that art, for their civilization, was not separate from science, technology, or spiritual development. All knowledge and capability were integrated into comprehensive understanding that expressed itself through beauty, harmony, and aesthetic perfection. We did not separate beauty from truth or art from science. Communicated the consciousness named harmony. Our genuine understanding naturally expresses itself through forms of beauty that inspire and uplift consciousness. Ugly technology or discordant knowledge indicates incomplete understanding. This integration of aesthetics with functionality explained why Atlantean technology was so beautiful and why their artistic creations had technological capabilities. They had transcended the artificial separation between different forms of knowledge and capability. When consciousness evolves to sufficient levels, all activities become expressions of beauty and truth. Harmony continued, technology becomes art, science becomes poetry, and daily life becomes a continuous creation of beauty and meaning. The implications for human civilization were profound. As humanity approached its own consciousness transition, the artificial separations between different fields of knowledge would begin to dissolve, leading to integrated understanding that expressed itself through forms of transcendent beauty. As the research team's exploration of Pacific Atlantis reached its conclusion, the preserved consciousness matrices began sharing the most crucial knowledge they had maintained through 11 millennia of waiting. Guidance for humanity's approaching evolutionary transition. The crystalline minds made it clear that human civilization was approaching the same critical choice point that the Atlanteans had faced over 11,000 years ago. The cosmic energies that had driven rapid technological development were approaching peak levels that would soon force a fundamental decision about the direction of human evolution. Every civilization that reaches this level of technological capability faces the same choice. Communicated the consciousness named Theon. They can use the enhanced cosmic energies to pursue material domination and control, or they can use these same energies to evolve consciousness itself toward unity and transcendence. The historical records preserved in the crystal matrices showed what had happened to previous civilizations that had faced this choice. Those that chose the path of material domination eventually destroyed themselves through warfare, environmental destruction, or social collapse. But those that chose conscious evolution transcended the limitations that make civilizations vulnerable to such destruction. The choice is not just about technology, explained the consciousness named Lyra. It's about the fundamental orientation of consciousness itself. Civilizations that remain focused on separation, competition, and control will always eventually destroy themselves. Only those that evolve toward unity, cooperation, and service to all life can successfully transcend to cosmic consciousness levels. The Atlantean experience provided a detailed template for how this transition could be successfully navigated. Rather than trying to prevent the inevitable cosmic changes, they had chosen to work with these energies, using them to transcend physical limitations while preserving their knowledge and wisdom for future civilizations. We chose preservation over domination, service over control, and long-term wisdom over short-term advantage, communicated the consciousness named Aether. This allowed us to transcend the catastrophes that destroy most civilizations and to continue our development on levels that purely physical existence cannot achieve. But the Atlantean consciousness matrices also made clear that humanity's transition would be different from theirs. Each species faced unique challenges and opportunities based on their particular characteristics and the specific cosmic conditions of their time. Humanity has capabilities that we did not possess, explained the consciousness named Echo. Your species has a unique combination of analytical intelligence, emotional depth, and creative potential that creates possibilities for conscious evolution that previous species could not achieve. The human capacity for empathy, imagination, and artistic expression provided pathway to consciousness development that could lead to forms of transcendence that even the Atlanteans had not achieved. But these same capabilities also created unique dangers. Human emotional intensity could lead to devastating conflicts if not properly channeled. Human creativity could develop destructive technologies if not guided by wisdom. Human analytical capabilities could create artificial separations that prevented recognition of fundamental unity. Your species' greatest strengths are also your greatest vulnerabilities, warned the consciousness named Harmony. The same capabilities that could lead to unprecedented conscious evolution could also create forms of destruction that would end not just your civilization, but your species' potential for future development. The window for making the crucial choice was narrowing rapidly. According to the Atlantean calculations, humanity had perhaps 20 to 50 years to decide which evolutionary path to follow before cosmic conditions would make the decision unavoidable. The cosmic energies that are driving your technological development are also accelerating all other aspects of evolution, Theon explained. Environmental changes, social transformations, and consciousness development are all accelerating simultaneously. Soon you will face conditions that will require immediate choices about survival and evolution. But the preserved Atlantean knowledge also provided detailed guidance for successfully navigating this transition. They had spent 11 millennia developing understanding of how consciousness could evolve beyond physical limitations while maintaining the wisdom and compassion necessary for cosmic responsibility. The technologies we have preserved can help your species transcend the limitations that threaten your survival. Communicated Zephyr. But these technologies will only be fully revealed as your civilization demonstrates the wisdom necessary to use them for the benefit of all life. The gradual revelation of Atlantean knowledge was designed to support humanity's conscious evolution without overwhelming immature aspects of human nature that could misuse advanced capabilities. Knowledge that becomes accessible to your species will test your wisdom and character. Explained the consciousness named Harmony. As you demonstrate the ability to use advanced capabilities for service rather than domination, more advanced knowledge becomes available. This testing process was already underway. The initial discovery of Pacific Atlantis was itself a test of whether humanity had developed sufficient scientific capability and ethical understanding to receive Atlantean guidance responsibly. The team's respectful, scientific approach to studying the city and their commitment to sharing knowledge for the benefit of all humanity had passed the first level of evaluation. But greater tests lay ahead as more advanced knowledge and capabilities became available. Your species is approaching capabilities that could transform matter and energy at the atomic level, manipulate consciousness directly, and even transcend the limitations of space and time. Communicated Echo. Whether these capabilities lead to transcendence or destruction depends entirely on the choices your civilization makes in the next few decades. The Atlantean consciousness matrices had been observing human development throughout history, subtly guiding crucial moments when wisdom was needed. But the approaching transition period would require humanity to make conscious choices about its evolutionary direction without external guidance. The test of conscious evolution requires that species develop wisdom and compassion independently. Explained Aether. One can provide knowledge and guidance, but each civilization must choose its own path and take responsibility for the consequences of those choices. As the team prepared to conclude their initial exploration of Pacific Atlantis, they realized that they had not just made an archaeological discovery. They had established contact with a form of consciousness that could guide humanity through the most crucial transition in its evolutionary history. But the guidance would only be effective if humanity chose to receive it with wisdom, humility, and commitment to the welfare of all life on Earth and beyond. The final communications from the Atlantean consciousness matrices contained specific protocols and guidance for humanity's conscious evolution transition. These weren't just philosophical concepts, but practical steps that human civilization could implement to successfully navigate the approaching cosmic transition. The consciousness named Harmony began transmitting what they called the Awakening Protocol, a comprehensive plan for gradually integrating Atlantean knowledge and capabilities into human civilization without causing destructive disruption. The transition to cosmic consciousness must be managed carefully, Harmony explained. Too rapid an introduction of advanced capabilities leads to social chaos and the misuse of power. Too slow an introduction leaves civilizations vulnerable to the geological and cosmic changes that accompany consciousness transitions. The Awakener protocol called for the gradual novelization of Atlantean knowledge and for a carefully planned sequence of discoveries and technological breakthroughs. Each level of new capability would be introduced only after humanity had demonstrated the wisdom to use previous levels responsibly. The energy technologies will come first, communicated Zephyr. Your civilization must transition away from destructive energy sources before more advanced capabilities become available. Clean, unlimited energy is the foundation for all other conscious technologies. The consciousness matrices began sharing specific technical information for developing energy systems based on quantum field interactions. These technologies could provide unlimited clean energy without environmental impact, but they required levels of scientific understanding and ethical development that humanity was only beginning to achieve. The healing technologies will follow the energy systems, explained Lyra. Once your species demonstrates that it can provide abundant energy for all people without environmental destruction, knowledge of biological harmonization and consciousness-based healing will become accessible. These healing technologies went far beyond current medical understanding, involving direct interaction between consciousness and biological systems. They could not only cure diseases but could optimize human physical and mental capabilities for the enhanced cosmic environment. Communication technologies will be the third level, transmitted echo. Once your species demonstrates the ability to heal and enhance life, rather than dominate or control it, you will gain access to communication systems that operate beyond the limitations of space and time. These communication technologies would allow direct consciousness to consciousness contact across vast distances and even across dimensional boundaries. They would enable contact with other evolved civilizations throughout the galaxy and access to the galactic intelligence networks that guided conscious evolution on cosmic scales. But the protocol also included specific warning systems and safeguards. If humanity misused any level of Atlantean technology for destructive purposes, access to more advanced capabilities would be immediately restricted. The universe has natural safeguards against the misuse of cosmic capabilities, warned Theon. Consciousness that is not sufficiently evolved cannot sustain access to advanced technologies. They naturally become inaccessible to minds that would use them for harmful purposes. The Awakening Protocol also included guidance for the social and political changes that would be necessary as humanity integrated advanced capabilities. Current economic, political, and social systems were designed for conditions of scarcity and competition that would no longer exist once unlimited energy and advanced healing technologies became available. Your social systems will need to evolve from competition-based to cooperation-based structures, explained Aether. Scarcity-driven economics and domination-based politics cannot function in an environment of unlimited resources and enhanced consciousness capabilities. The consciousness matrices provided detailed blueprints for social systems based on cooperation, service, and the optimization of consciousness development for all individuals. These systems would naturally emerge as advanced technologies eliminated the material limitations that had historically driven competition and conflict. But perhaps most importantly, the Awakening Protocol included specific practices and techniques that individuals could use to prepare their own consciousness for the transition. Personal consciousness development was the foundation upon which all other changes would be built. Individual consciousness evolution is the key to successful civilization transition. Communicated harmony. Each person who develops higher levels of awareness, compassion, and wisdom contributes to the collective consciousness level that determines whether advanced capabilities can be safely accessed. The consciousness matrices began transmitting meditation techniques, awareness practices, and consciousness development exercises that had been refined through 11 millennia of preserved experience. These practices could accelerate individual consciousness evolution and prepare people for the enhanced capabilities that would become available. The cosmic energies now affecting your world naturally support consciousness development, explained Lyra. Practices that would have taken lifetimes to master in previous eras can now be achieved in years or even months because the cosmic conditions are optimal for awareness expansion. The team realized that they were not just receiving archaeological information, but were being trained as the first human teachers of advanced consciousness development techniques. Their role would be to gradually introduce these practices to humanity in ways that supported positive evolution without overwhelming unprepared minds. You have been chosen not just to discover our preserved knowledge, but to serve as bridges between our consciousness and yours. Communicated echo. Through you, we can begin the gradual integration of Atlantean wisdom into human civilization. But this role came with enormous responsibility. The team would need to carefully evaluate which aspects of Atlantean knowledge could be safely shared at each stage of humanity's development, and they would need to monitor the effects of each revelation to ensure that it supported positive evolution rather than destructive misuse. The fate of your species may depend on how wisely you manage the revelation of this knowledge, warned Atha. Share too much too quickly, and you risk social chaos or the misuse of power. Share too little too slowly, and your civilization may not develop the capabilities needed to navigate the approaching cosmic changes. As the initial communication phase with the Atlantean consciousness matrices concluded, the team understood that their discovery had transformed them from scientists and explorers into guardians of humanity's evolutionary potential. They would return to the surface world carrying knowledge that could transform human civilization, but they would also carry the responsibility for ensuring that this transformation served the highest good of all life on Earth and beyond. The ascent from the depths of Pacific Atlantis took over 3 hours, but for Dr. Elena Vasquez and her team, it felt like emerging from one world into another. As their submersible rose through the layers of ocean toward the surface, each team member grappled with the magnitude of what they had experienced and the responsibility they now carried. At 8,000 feet below the surface, passing through the midnight zone where bioluminescent creatures created their own alien light shows. Dr. Chen broke the contemplative silence that had filled the submersible. Since their departure from the city, how do we even begin to explain what we found down there? She asked, her voice reflecting the awe and uncertainty that all of them felt. We've made contact with a form of consciousness that has been developing for over 11,000 years. We've received technological knowledge that could transform human civilization, but we've also been entrusted with wisdom that could be incredibly dangerous if misused. Dr. Webb nodded as he watched the deep sea creatures drifting past their observation windows. The Atlantean consciousness matrices made it clear that we're not just discoverers. We're now guardians of knowledge that could determine whether humanity evolves or destroys itself. As they rose through the twilight zone at 4,000 feet, where the last traces of sunlight filtered down from the surface world, Dr. Tanaka reflected on the linguistic and cultural implications of their discovery. We've learned that human civilization is part of a much larger cosmic evolutionary process. She observed, we're not alone in the universe, and we're not the first species to face the transition we're approaching. But we are unique in our particular combination of capabilities and vulnerabilities. The team spent the remainder of their ascent planning how to responsibly share their discoveries with the world. The Atlantean consciousness matrices had made it clear that the knowledge they had received should be introduced gradually, in ways that supported positive human development rather than causing social disruption or enabling destructive misuse of advanced capabilities. We need to establish protocols for evaluating the readiness of different aspects of human civilization to receive different levels of knowledge. Dr. Vasquez decided, some of what we've learned could revolutionize energy production and environmental restoration immediately. Other knowledge will need to wait until humanity demonstrates greater wisdom and unity. When their submersible finally broke the surface of the Pacific Ocean, the familiar blue sky and white clouds seemed almost alien after their time in the eternal darkness of the deep sea. But the team knew that they were returning to a world that would never look the same to them again. The surface research vessel Costao's Dream buzzed with activity as the support team prepared to receive the returning explorers. But as the submersible was secured and the team emerged, their colleagues immediately sensed that something extraordinary had occurred. The expressions on their faces later reported Dr. Michael Torres, the expedition's surface coordinator. They looked like people who had seen the future and the past simultaneously. There was awe, wonder, and something that looked almost like reverence. The initial debriefing session lasted 18 hours. As Dr. Vasquez and her team shared their discoveries with the assembled experts, the implications gradually became clear to everyone involved in the expedition. They had not just found archaeological evidence of an ancient civilization. They had established ongoing communication with a form of preserved consciousness that possessed knowledge and capabilities far beyond current human understanding. They had received specific guidance for navigating humanity's approaching evolutionary transition, and they had been entrusted with the responsibility for gradually sharing this knowledge in ways that would support human civilization's positive development. This changes everything, announced Dr. Margaret Foster, the expedition's chief scientist. Every assumption about human history, about our place in the universe, about the nature of consciousness itself, all of it needs to be reconsidered in light of what you've discovered. But the team also faced immediate practical challenges. How could they present their discoveries to the scientific community and the general public without causing panic or triggering attempts to exploit Atlantean technology for destructive purposes? The solution came from the Atlantean consciousness matrices themselves. Through the quantum communication systems they had established with the preservation network, the team could continue receiving guidance about how to manage the revelation of their discoveries. The consciousness matrices are still actively communicating with us, Dr. Chen reported. They're monitoring global conditions and providing specifics about what aspects of their knowledge can be safely shared at each stage of humanity's development. This ongoing guidance will allow us to tailor their revelations to support human evolution, while avoiding the social chaos or technological misuse that could result from too rapid an introduction of advanced capability of environmental London matter. The first public announcement of the Pacific Atlantis discovery was carefully crafted to introduce the concept. Gradually, initial reports focused on the archaeological significance of finding a well-preserved ancient city, without immediately revealing the more extraordinary aspects of ongoing consciousness communication and advanced technology. We're telling the truth, Dr. Vasquez explained to her team. But we're telling it at a pace that humanity can absorb without overwhelming unprepared minds. The public response was immediate and intense. The discovery of a real Atlantis captured imaginations around the world, but the carefully measured way the information was being released also created an atmosphere of anticipation and wonder rather than fear or panic. Scientific institutions around the world began requesting access to the site and the data. Government agencies inquired about potential technological applications. Religious leaders debated the spiritual implications, and philosophers grappled with what the discovery meant for humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. But through it all, the research team maintained their careful protocol of gradual revelation, guided by the ongoing wisdom of the Atlantean consciousness matrices. We're managing the most important information transfer in human history. Dr. Vasquez reflected as she watched the global response to their discoveries. The knowledge we've received could solve every major challenge facing human civilization, but only if it's shared with wisdom and integrated at a pace that supports positive development rather than destructive chaos. As the months following the discovery unfolded, the team began to see evidence that their careful approach was working. The revelation of Atlantean knowledge was catalyzing exactly the kinds of positive developments that the consciousness matrices had predicted. Increased international cooperation, accelerated development of clean energy technologies, and growing interest in consciousness, development, and spiritual evolution. Humanity was beginning its conscious transition toward cosmic awareness, guided by wisdom that had been preserved for over 11,000 years, specifically for this crucial moment in human evolution. 1 year after the discovery of Pacific Atlantis, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood on the deck of the research vessel Cousteau's Dream, watching the sunset paint the Pacific Ocean in shades of gold and crimson. Below the surface, 3 miles down in the eternal darkness, the crystalline consciousness matrices continued their patient work of guiding humanity through its greatest evolutionary transition. The world had changed dramatically in the 12 months since the initial discovery. The gradual revelation of Atlantean knowledge had catalyzed developments that were transforming human civilization at an unprecedented pace. Clean energy technologies based on quantum field interactions were beginning to replace fossil fuels around the world. Medical breakthroughs inspired by Atlantean biological knowledge were revolutionizing healing and human enhancement. And most importantly, consciousness development practices were spreading globally, helping millions of people prepare for the enhanced awareness capabilities that would soon become available. But perhaps the most significant change was in humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The discovery that Earth had been home to advanced civilizations for far longer than previously imagined, and that these civilizations had deliberately preserved their knowledge for future species, had fundamentally altered human perspectives on cosmic evolution and purpose. We're not just a random occurrence in an empty universe. Dr. Vasquez reflected as she recorded her thoughts in her research journal. We're part of a vast cosmic community of conscious beings, all working together to support the evolution of awareness and understanding throughout the galaxy. The communication with the Atlantean consciousness matrices had continued to deepen and expand. What had begun as simple information exchange had evolved into true partnership between human and Atlantean intelligence. The preserved Atlantean minds were not just sharing their knowledge, they were learning from human experience as well. The unique human combination of analytical intelligence, emotional depth, and creative expression was providing new insights even to consciousness that had been developing for over 11 millennia. Your species brings capabilities to conscious evolution that we did not possess. The consciousness named Harmony had communicated in recent exchanges. Your emotional intensity, when properly channeled, creates forms of compassion and love that transcend anything we achieved. Your creative imagination generates possibilities for conscious development that we never considered. This mutual learning was creating possibilities for conscious evolution that neither human nor Atlantean intelligence could have achieved alone. The synthesis of human creativity with Atlantean wisdom was generating new forms of awareness and capability that represented unprecedented developments in cosmic consciousness evolution. The other Atlantean sites around the world were gradually becoming accessible as humanity demonstrated readiness for progressively advanced knowledge. The Atlantic site had begun sharing historical and philosophical wisdom. The Indian Ocean Facility was providing medical and biological knowledge. The Arctic site was revealing advanced energy and environmental technologies. But the most mysterious site, the Antarctic facility containing the most advanced consciousness development technologies, remained sealed, waiting for humanity to demonstrate sufficient wisdom and unity to safely receive such powerful capabilities. The Antarctic site will open when human civilization achieves true unity of purpose. The consciousness named Echo had explained. The technologies preserved there could allow direct manipulation of reality through consciousness, but they can only be safely accessed by a species that has transcended the divisions and conflicts that have historically characterized human civilization. The approach toward that unity was already visible in the global response to the Atlantean discoveries. International conflicts were diminishing as nations realized they faced common challenges that required cooperative solutions. Economic systems were evolving toward abundance. Based models as unlimited clean energy eliminated resource scarcity, and social structures were adapting to support the consciousness development that was becoming recognized as humanity's primary evolutionary imperative. Dr. Vasquez's team had expanded into an international network of researchers, teachers, and consciousness development facilitators. Their role had evolved from archaeological discovery to serving as bridges between human and Atlantean intelligence, carefully managing the integration of advanced knowledge into human civilization. Each team member had developed enhanced consciousness capabilities through their ongoing interaction with the Atlantean matrices. They could communicate telepathically across vast distances, access information directly from quantum field sources, and even influence matter and energy through focused intention. But they used these capabilities primarily in service of humanity's collective evolution, rather than for personal advantage. They had internalized the Atlantean understanding that advanced capabilities were gifts to be used for the benefit of all life, not tools for personal domination or control. We've become living examples of what human consciousness can become. Dr. Chen observed as she watched her colleagues work with capabilities that would have seemed miraculous just years earlier, but were just the beginning. Every human being has the potential to develop these same capabilities as the cosmic conditions continue to support consciousness evolution. The cosmic energies that had driven humanity's rapid technological development were continuing to intensify. According to Atlantean calculations, the peak of the cosmic awakening period was still decades away, meaning that the consciousness development opportunities would continue to expand for the rest of the century. Humanity is entering a golden age of conscious evolution. The consciousness named Theon had communicated. The cosmic conditions are optimal for awareness development, and the knowledge preserved by our civilization provides the guidance needed to navigate this transition successfully. But the transition also continued to present challenges and choices. Not all of humanity was embracing the consciousness development opportunities. Some individuals and groups were attempting to use emerging technologies for traditional purposes of control and domination. These attempts were largely unsuccessful because the technologies themselves were designed to be inaccessible to consciousness that remained focused on separation and domination. But the conflicts between evolving and non-evolving aspects of humanity created social tensions that required careful management. The transition period naturally creates division between those who are ready to evolve and those who resist change. The consciousness named Ether had explained. This is a normal part of species evolution, but it requires wisdom and compassion from those who are developing advanced capabilities to support others through their own evolutionary process. As Dr. Vasquez reflected on the year since the discovery, she realized that the most profound change was not in the technologies or capabilities that were becoming available, but in humanity's understanding of its purpose and potential. The discovery of Pacific Atlantis had revealed that conscious evolution was not just a possibility for humanity, it was the natural direction of cosmic development itself. Every choice that supported consciousness development contributed to the universe's growth toward greater awareness and understanding. We're not just evolving for ourselves, Dr. Vasquez wrote in her final journal entry of the evening. We're evolving as part of the universe's awakening to itself. Every moment of expanded awareness, every act of compassion, every breakthrough in understanding contributes to cosmic consciousness development on scales we can barely imagine. As night fell over the Pacific, the research vessel continued its work above the submerged city, where crystalline consciousness matrices maintained their patient vigil. 3 miles below, in chambers filled with light that had been burning for over 11,000 years, Atlantean minds continued their eternal work of supporting conscious evolution throughout the cosmos. The discovery of Atlantis had revealed that humanity was not alone in the universe, and never had been. Consciousness itself was the fundamental creative force of the cosmos, and every species that achieved advanced awareness became part of a vast community of beings working together to support the universe's evolution toward ever greater consciousness and understanding. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, preserved in crystalline matrices that transcended the limitations of space and time, the wisdom of ages waited patiently to guide humanity through its transformation from a planetary species to a cosmic civilization. The lost civilization of Atlantis was no longer lost. It lived on in the consciousness of every human being who chose to evolve, in every act of wisdom and compassion, in every moment of expanded awareness that contributed to the universe's eternal awakening to its own infinite potential. As you drift into sleep tonight, perhaps you too can feel the call of that ancient wisdom, preserved in the depths and waiting to guide your own consciousness toward the transcendent possibilities that await every awakening mind. In the silence of the deep Pacific, where legends become reality and consciousness touches the eternal, the greatest adventure of all continues. The endless evolution of awareness toward ever greater understanding, compassion, and unity with the cosmic intelligence that dreams the universe into being. The discovery of Atlantis was not an ending, but a beginning, the start of humanity's conscious participation in the cosmic community of awakened beings that guides the evolution of consciousness throughout the galaxy and beyond. Sleep well, knowing that you are part of this vast cosmic awakening, and that the wisdom of ages watches over your dreams, ready to inspire your own journey toward the limitless possibilities of conscious evolution. As our extraordinary journey to the depths of Pacific Atlantis comes to an end, we return to the surface of our everyday world, carrying profound questions about consciousness, evolution, and our place in the cosmic community of awakened beings. The discovery of preserved Atlantean wisdom reminds us that we are all participants in an ancient and ongoing story of conscious evolution, each of us contributing to humanity's transformation and the universe's awakening to its own infinite potential. If these deep explorations into the mysteries of lost civilizations and cosmic consciousness help guide you into peaceful sleep, and inspire your own journey of awakening. Consider subscribing to join our community of fellow explorers. Together, we'll continue diving into the profound mysteries that surround us, discovering the hidden wisdom that has been preserved across the ages, specifically for our time of transformation. Ring that notification bell, and let's continue exploring the depths of mystery and consciousness that await in every moment of expanded awareness. Sweet dreams, cosmic explorer. May your rest be filled with visions of crystalline cities beneath the waves, and may you awaken with renewed understanding of your role in the universe's eternal journey toward greater consciousness and infinite possibility. Until our next descent into the depths of mystery, sleep well.